We're in Sensory2. In this chapter, we're going to talk about the visual system. So visual system, you have those accessory structure. And that's the sagittal view of your eye. Lacrimal apparatus, that's your tear gland. So when you cry, the tear will come from the lateral side of your eye. It will completely wash through your eye and go to the nasal part. So if you cry a lot, you feel like the tear go to your nose, and that's because that's how it flows. In the tear, you have some salt and some antibiotic, so they can kill the bacteria. So that's the function of your tear. Also, it lubricates your eye. And let's look at the muscles outside of your eye. Your eye, you only have one area with very sharp vision. We call it fovea. And if you want to see clearly, you have to move the fovea to the target. And that's why the outside of your eye, you have 6 muscles, 4 rectus muscle and 2 oblique muscle. Their function is to move the eye, move the fovea to see the object. And you have 3 cranial nerves to control those 6 muscles. Cranial nerves 3, 4, and 6, dedicated to control those 6 muscles. So these are those 6 muscles. 4 of them controlled by cranial nerve number 3, oculomotor. And you also have cranial nerve number 4, trachea, and number 6, abducens, to control them. Now let's look at the eyeball structure. The eyeballs have 3 layers. The outside layer is called the fibrous tunic, and that's the strong layer. So that's the fibrous tunic, outside layer, including the cornea and sclera. The sclera is a tough layer, so that's those opaque layer. That's the sclera. When you go to the anterior part, it's called the cornea. Cornea is transparent, and that's the layer you put your contact lenses on, you touch it. That's the cornea. It's transparent because the light have to move in. The second layer called the vascular tunic. So that's the middle layer. That's the layers you have blood vessel, a lot of capillary. That's in the vascular layer. Also, in the anterior part, you have the ciliary body. That's the ciliary body. Ciliary body connect to the lens. So ciliary body is the structure to pull the lens, to control the curvature of the lens. So it's able to focus the object close to you or further away from you. And the third layer called the neural tunic. Neural tunic, that's the inner layer. That's the layers, and that's the most important layer. That's the place they transfer the physical stimulus, which is the light, into the neuronal signal, neurotransmitter release and action potential. That's the inner layer. So that's the retina. That's the neural tunica. That's the third layer. And they show you the eyeball structure, the outside layer, the middle layer, and the inner layer. And this is the ciliary body. So ciliary body including the ciliary muscle, and inside part the ciliary process, which directly connect to the lens. So they are able to pull the lens, change the curvature of the lens, so that the lens can focus the object close or far. The anterior part of the whole mushroom, I call it mushroom. It looks like a mushroom when you dissect the eyeball. And this is the ciliary body. Now let's look at the iris. Iris is a very anterior part. This is the iris. And the iris, its function is change the provide the opening. And iris also have the pigments. So your eye color is decided by the pigments of the iris. And the iris provide the opening called the pupil. So there's no anatomical structure in the eye called pupil. Pupil is an opening created by iris. And this part is the anterior chamber. It's a very small chamber. And you have liquid inside called the aqueous humor. And this we call the posterior chamber and it's much bigger than the anterior chamber. Inside is still water, but it's more like a gel structure. It's more like a gel structure called the vitreous humor. And all the vitreous humor and aqueous humor, their function is to maintain the structure of the eyeball. So your eye have two chambers, anterior chamber, posterior chamber. Anterior chamber is pretty small. This is anterior chamber. And the liquid is called aqueous humor. It's like water, and it will flow. And the posterior chamber is also like water, but it's more like a gel. So we call the vitreous humor. And this is in the posterior chamber. Now let's look at the lens. So the lens is the main place to bend the light. Your cornea can bend the light a little bit, but the main place to bend the light is the lens. So you will bend the light, make sure the light perfectly focus on the retina. So that's the center of the retina called the fovea. That's the area you have the sharp vision. And this area we call the blind spot. The reason is that's the output of all the neurons axon output, and also blood vessel will go through here. So you could not put any photoreceptor here. So this place is actually blind. It's called the optic disc, also called the blind spot. Ideally, your lens need to focus perfectly, so the light will focus perfectly on the retina, especially in the fovea. And for some reason, if they could not do that, either your eyeball is too long or the focus point is too short, and that's nearsighted, also called myopia. There's a big word to say nearsighted. And you have to put on the concave lens. The concave lens function is to diverge the light a little bit so they can focus perfectly on the fovea. So your nearsighted glasses, they are concave lens. The far-sighted is the light focus in the back of the retina, so you still won't be able to see clearly. And the modification is you put those convex lens. Convex lens, it will converge light first, then it will converge light again, so the light will perfectly focus on the fovea. And the convex lens is magnifier, so you can easily tell some people they have far-sighted, they wear the glasses and their eye look bigger, and that's because the far-sighted glasses are convex. The most important structure in the eyeball is the retina. All the other structure, their job is to make sure the light perfectly focus on the retina. And the retina is a piece of paper, but it's actually made of 5 layers of cells, and we mainly focus on 3 of them. The first one, the most important one, rods and cones, photoreceptor layer. So the light have to reach the photoreceptor layer, and the photoreceptor will transfer the light, which is a physical stimulus, into neurotransmitter release, and it will release neurotransmitter to the second layer called bipolar cell. Bipolar cells will transfer the signal and send them to the ganglia cells. Ganglia cells will generate action potential and through the cranial nerve number 2 and send the signal to the brain, and that's the optic nerve. And you say, well, I say 5 layers, why I only talk about 3. You also have the other 2. Their job is not go from 1 to 1 to 1 direct, vertically. They go horizontally. They're horizontal cells and amacrine cells. So these 2 layers of cells, their job is horizontally communication. And scientists believe their job is to do the lateral calculation, and like the lateral inhibition we talk about in the skin, emphasize the contrast. So your visual system can emphasize the contrast and ignore the absolute light level. And these show you your retina. So you have the rods and cones, bipolar cells, ganglia cells. So we don't talk about the horizontal cell and amacrine cells too much in this class. Let's look at the rods and cones. you have much more rods than cones. And you only have one kind of rods. Rods are very sensitive to light, so we use them for night vision. And also, you only have one kind of rod, so it doesn't matter what kind of wavelengths you hit the rods, it will give you exactly the same response. So rods are for black and white vision. And at night, you only activate the rod. So at night, you don't see color pretty well. And let's look at the cones. Cones, you have 3 different kind of cones. We call it a blue cone, the red cone, and the green cone. So it depends on what wavelength hit it, and it will activate one of them most. So they give you the color vision, these 3 kind of cones. And they need more light to activate them. And we use them for the daytime vision because in the daytime we have plenty of light. So in the daytime with plenty of light you can see color pretty well, and that's the cone system. And you have a lot of cones in the fovea. In the fovea, almost all of them are cones. And start from the peripheral, it's all rods. Let's take a short break.